Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is Letters to Blue. If you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. So this episode is dedicated to people who send in emails, and if they have a story they want to share or they have questions, it's sort of like Q&A Tuesday, but extended. So if you would like to have your letter read on my show, please comment below or shoot me an email and I will work it into an episode. So thank you to everybody who submitted their letter, and let's begin. All right, number 1. I take my exam on the 13th and I have nothing but anxiety that is making me physically sick, and to the point where I don't even want to study anymore. I get so overwhelmed. Is that normal before the exam? I love your videos. You're such an inspiration. Thank you for that. But the thing is, if you are getting so nervous that it's making you physically ill and you don't want to study, that is to a very extreme level of just overthinking. Tests are nerve-wracking. Nobody likes tests because of the word. It's a test. And it's either going to have a good outcome or it's going to have a not so good outcome. The thing about tests is that it is necessary and you have to go through this. But if it's getting you to that point, you need to really stop and think about your thoughts when it comes to these exams, and you really have to start working on marshaling those thoughts in a more positive way. It should not make you physically ill to the point where you want to stop. You have done so much to get to that point. And to give it up because all of a sudden you feel all of this anxiety is really, it's heartbreaking, because to think that you put in so much time and energy and effort into learning, and just to stop because you physically don't want to go any further. You're at the finish line. All you have to do is just take the exam. So it really is going to be a matter of changing the way that you think about things, changing the way that you look at the exam, and really just taking that step forward. Nobody likes it. Everybody feels uncomfortable, but it shouldn't get to the point where it's making you that physically sick that you want to stop. So, like I said, try to work on that, and you should be confident because you've taken time to study. You've taken time and you've passed all of your tests while you've been in school. This is no different from that. It is literally just showcasing everything that you know. So that is my advice there. And to look at it like it's just another paper that you have to do. It's graded, but it's just another paper that you have to do. And sometimes when you have to think of these things, you have to put your foot down for yourself. So that is just my advice. Next letter. I went back to school after losing my job for 12 and a half years. I started back in October of last year, and I will graduate in January 2021. My only problem is I have panic attacks when it comes to taking a test. I still have to take my certification exam soon. I am 65 and I'm hoping to find work soon. Again, we have to reframe the way we think about tests. And when it comes to the end of the line, a lot of people are inclined to hit the brakes because there's an unknown on the other side of that test. And the key to seeing that future unknown is to take the test and taking that step forward, moving in that direction of growth. And it's going to hurt. Sometimes there's going to be times when things may not go our way, or we may not get as high as we want on that test, or, whatever the case may be, good or bad, whatever the outcome is. A test is going to be a gauge of whether or not you grasp the material or not. That is the key to unlocking your future. And when you go through something like this, when you have a physical condition, because for some people it is a physical condition and that they can't control it, they have to work with whatever their doctors or their medications to help them. And there's, it's admirable, because the thing is, people know their bodies and people know their minds. But for others, it's just a thought process that gets out of control. And so we all have to sort of look at, again, reframing the way that we think about tests. Tests is just the finish line. And this is a culmination of everything that you have learned in this program. And there's going to be an amount of questions that you can get wrong, okay? So don't think of it as you have to get every single question right. If there is something that you're not really confident on, just do your best to use process of elimination and keep going. If you get hung up on a question, that the precious minutes are going to be ticking away. And when you have that, it's going to steal the time that you can from other questions that you know you're going to be able to answer. Because nobody walks into these tests blind. You know what to expect because you have been practicing your coding, you know the rules, and you're using the book. The book is open. It's not like you have to memorize actual codes. This is where you have to showcase your skills of being able to follow the guidelines, apply the codes, and so on. So think of it like that, guys. And I get these letters quite often, and they come in batches because I think when people start to take their exams, a big batch of people take it at one time. But it's not as scary as you think, especially if you reframe the way that you look at an exam. If you can reframe the way you look at an exam, like this is just the finish line. This is just them asking me everything that I have learned. And if you relax enough to showcase your talents, you would be very pleasantly surprised at the results because it's there. I mean, you've done all your studying. And for some people, they've been in this program for 9 months, 12 months, or 18 months. That is a comfortable amount of time to be able to learn something. I understand being a little nervous if you've been in a program and it's like 4 months, the 16-week programs. I understand that because that's quite quick. But, you know, if you are applying yourself and you are really studying hard, if you already have prior knowledge, that's something that is different and that may help you. But when you get ready to take these exams, guys, it's almost the best part because then you know that that's it. That it's the final lap. And you can take a deep breath after you've completed your exam, knowing that you've done your best. And you just got to wait and see what happens. And if worse comes to worse, you just take it again. And that is the ins and outs of it, really, because it's not like you can't take it again. You can. You absolutely can. But it's all going to be about how you apply yourself and how you really buckle down and say, I'm going to pass this. I'm going to do really well. So if you are out there and you are about to take your exam, I wish you the best because a new career field is waiting for you. All you have to do is just take that leap. So next letter. Once again, you posted exactly what I was worrying over. I earned a 96% on the musculoskeletal system test. I looked over the cover of the anatomy coloring book and realized that we didn't even learn the bones of the skull. Then I realized what we didn't learn, the names of the muscles or how they connect to the bones or other structures. You are a very sweet lady, and as soon as I graduate, pass my test on the first attempt, and ace my interviews, how's that for positive thinking? I will sign up for Patreon. Pinky swear. Thank you so much. Well, thank you. And I'm glad to see that you are in a very positive frame of mind. That is really good. But yes, you are going to have programs where you're going to learn some things and you're going to learn a fraction of what is really out there. Their job in these schools is to give you the broad strokes. It's up to you to get the details. This viewer clearly went above and beyond because they got a coloring book, which I do recommend. I love coloring books. And I have always recommended getting an anatomy coloring book because that helped me. But when you are doing things like that, that's when you start discovering all the other things. all the other things that you didn't learn. And then it comes down to pathology, and then it comes down to more medical terminology that you're learning. That's when you start hitting that high caliber coder status. So I recommend that you keep doing that. If you are in an accelerated medical coding program, I also recommend that you study on your own. I do have the independent study sequence list. You can also use that in conjunction with your studies to see if that will boost the things that you learned. I talked a few days ago about having my aha moment and what that was like. I had, when we were transitioning over to ICD-10, we had a program where they were training us to do ICD-10 at work. And then I had the opportunity to do another program separately at home. And so I took advantage of that. And going through two simultaneous programs at the same time really helped me to grasp ICD-10 coding. And so because of that, it made it a lot easier. The transition was much easier for me, and I could explain things like injury and sequela and subsequent encounter and initial encounter because that was very easy because I had double the study. So that is something to consider. The more you study, the more confident that you're going to get, the more you're going to be able to speak with knowledge and have that behind you. So that's why I always recommend that you guys study, and doing things like using a coloring book will really help you. So thank you for your kind words. I am very excited for your future, and I hope that you will keep me updated. All right. So next letter. She says, I am a medical transcriptionist and have been for decades. I am hoping in-person tests will begin soon. The state that I live in has been on a lockdown for 9 months now. I have been reluctant to take the test online because my internet is unreliable. I held off pursuing medical coding for a long time because of my worries about artificial intelligence and offshore taking over the field based on my experience as a medical transcriptionist. We have been reduced to editing speech recognition, which is not ready for prime time and downright dangerous. Offshore disseminated our wages and has taken most of our work despite the poor quality. I trained for 2 different vocations but hated those vocations. So here I am pursuing medical coding. I loved medical transcription and really geeked out researching and reading medical information. A coworker and I used to enjoy reading the medical dictionary during our breaks. Now that's my kind of coworker. I treasure the knowledge that I have from all of my years as a transcriptionist, terminology, anatomy, and documentation knowledge. I get excited teasing out the documentation and finding the codes. As I transcribe, I find myself thinking, how would I code this documentation? I hope I can have the same success I had breaking into medical transcription. I applied to several jobs, begged to be tested, and finally landed a job. I get a lot out of your videos. Thank you for sharing your experience and advice with us. Although YouTube is killing me, there were 6 advertisement breaks during this video. All right, so when you are transitioning from another field into medical coding, like medical transcription into medical coding, those transferable skills are there and they are ripe for the picking, because those transferable skills that you have, they have to go on your resume, whatever you do. Please make sure that you are putting that on your resume. And in your cover letter, talk about your experience of looking at the documentation and being able to spot those diagnoses that are in there, and how you aspired to be a medical coder by thinking of what codes you would apply. And that in your cover letter is just something a little bit about you. And it's like, oh, well, this is a person that we could give a chance to. And I'm really glad that you know how to go after what you want, which, from what you say here, as far as like you applied to several jobs and you begged to be tested and you finally landed a job. That's the same kind of energy that you're going to have to apply when applying for a medical coder. So it's really good that you've had these experiences. I'm glad for that. Make sure that you get that on your resume, like I said. Medical coding offers a lot to a lot of people who want to transition to it, whether you're a medical transcriptionist or a nurse. Using all of your anatomy, physiology, medical terminology, that's really going to help you here, because a lot of medical coders, when they first start out, don't have that experience. So really knowing the terminology is going to help you tenfold. And that is very helpful, especially when you are starting out, because when I started, I didn't have any background in medical at all. And so learning all of this and having that aha moment and doing all, my own studies, my own personal studies, I'm still learning even today. And it's a lot. Think about it. We have to know what doctors know while never having gone to medical school. And it is incredibly a big task when you think about it. So I hope that you're ready for this, and I hope that you will enjoy it, because it is fun, especially when you see this documentation and then you start reading it and you're like, ooh, and then what happened? And then what happened? I will do that. I will literally be sucked in to an encounter and be like, it is so funny when I think about, what I do, when I'm reading these. But the amount of detail really does come into play, and having good documentation to work with really does help. So, that is something to consider and something to think about. But as far as the advertisements go, I can't control the advertisements. How many advertisements play during my videos, that's entirely up to YouTube. But I'll tell you, the place that doesn't have ads is my Patreon channel. And if you don't know what Patreon is a channel like YouTube, but you pay to sponsor the creator, which would be me. And on my Patreon channel, I do coding exercises. I talk about myself. I do word puzzles to help with medical terminology, like crossword puzzles. And I have just now started to do word searches, which is really cool, because instead of putting the actual word in the list, like in the list bank, what I've been doing is asking my audience to find the synonyms of these words. So it will help you to broaden, okay, well, I know that this word also means this. So it is very interesting. And so if you are interested, the pledge levels start out at just $1 per month. And you get access to all of that. So higher pledge levels also include one-on-one tutoring time. So that is something, if you are interested, I hope you'll check it out. I will leave the link for my Patreon channel down in the description box below. But like I said, I have no control over what YouTube decides to do. YouTube is a free site, so there's going to be ads, and there's nothing else I can say about that one. But I'm glad you guys are watching. I'm so grateful and so thankful that you are watching, and I really truly appreciate it, because doing these videos every day, it's a joy for me, and I like to share all the things that I know with all of you guys. And starting this, I knew that there was some of the things that they don't teach you in school, and some of the things that I had to learn on my own. So wanting to share all of this information is one of the reasons that I created this channel, because I knew that there was a need for it. There was a need for this information. And, well, people say, well, if I would have known that would have made it easier for me. Well, that's why I try to do this. But anyway, that is the show for today. Thank you guys so much for your letters, and I really appreciate it, because you sharing your experience of, transitioning from one field to another field, or if you're talking about your age, a lot of people wonder that too. Am I too old? No, I know plenty of people. I knew the lady that I went to school with. She was age 61, and she's still a coder today. She got her medical coding credential at age 61, and she's still a coder now. And I've been a coder for over 10 years, so... Yeah. And this field doesn't, if you are still spry and you still got it, use it, you know, because if you don't use it, you lose it, right? But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up. Thank you guys for joining me, and I will see y'all again tomorrow. Bye.